Hi, class. I'm here with one of my colleagues, and welcome back. This is the second interview that we're doing, and this is the Excel project where I'm trying to get you out of the textbook and into real-life examples. So I will let my guest introduce himself, and if he can share a little bit about what he does for a living, that would be great. Go right ahead.
All right, hello. My name is Dave De La Fuente. I am a process engineering manager at a high-tech manufacturing company here in Santa Rosa. And I use Excel very regularly. My entire team does.
What types of ways do you use Excel on a day-to-day basis?
So we do a lot of data analysis. I have a team of about 11 people, and all of us are in Excel a good portion of our day. So we use it for everything from very simple creation of forms, looking at very simple data, to extremely advanced automated database systems, external database queries, and a lot of advanced Excel.
Great. So if you don't mind, Dave, if we can jump in and see a demonstration or an example of something that you may do to make a business decision within Excel, that would be awesome.
Sure. I can show you. Let me share my screen. So typically I'll receive some data in a format, something like this. And the information, if you look at it, you can maybe look and see some trends there, but typically we like to look at these things in a graphical view. So I can insert a graph to look at this data, perhaps in a visual way, to see if I can make out any trends or anything particular about this set of data that is meaningful. And I can see that there's, a lot of data here. It's very difficult to see it. So I really need to reorganize my data. So what I can do is take the data, and I'm going to blow this up a little bit here so that you can see the data up top, and lay my data out in a different form. So here I kind of had my data in columns with the series on the left, and I've changed it up a bit now where I've got my y-axis kind of on the x-axis now, and I can lay it out across. And so what that allows me to do is then graph each one of these columns. And so what I've done here is made a whole bunch of graphs. And I started by creating one graph and then duplicating that graph and just pointing it at a different area of the data. So now I can look at this data in a macroscopic view and look for differences in the trends in the way that these things look. So that's one way.
And just out of curiosity, what does the data represent? You don't have to go into much detail, but it would be nice.
But this data represents some characteristics of a raw material that we have. And so what we found is that some of this raw material had problems where there was a high number on the left side and a low number on the right side, which created a wedge defect. And that wedge defect was problematic. Whereas if there was a bunch of noise and it was kind of floaty across, it was okay. But when we had this slant and this tilt to it, that identified a problem with the product. And we were able to go back to our supplier and say, hey, this is the scope of the problem.
And Dave, how does that wedge defect impact your bottom line for your business?
So for every one of those that you see that are in yellow, those were product. We actually made product with that material, and we lost material. We had yield losses on those. The ones that are in blue were the ones that once we did this analysis, we were able to put a hold on those, put them on an NCMR, which is a non-compliant material report, and prevent us from using those and having those yield losses associated with those. So
awesome.
It saved us money, and it does take a little bit of extra effort to maybe look at data in a different way to be able to determine if you have a problem.
And you were able to make that decision almost solely by inputting data in Excel and analyzing that data, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Going just from a basic simple table of numbers here to maybe just looking at it in a different way.
Great. We do have time for one more example if you have one that you want to share.
Right. And so we might go to our leadership team or decision makers with a case to bring on a new material or produce a new product, and we need to provide the data, the supporting data. And so in a PowerPoint like this, we have lots of graphs and tables and information and analysis, but this all came out of analysis that we did from within Excel. So I'm going to show you the Excel spreadsheet that I used to create that PowerPoint. So what you can do in Excel is you can create separate tabs and have information on each of those tabs. Those tabs can talk to each other. You can actually point to those tabs. If you maybe have a whole bunch of data on one page, but you want to have a clean page full of graphs or summaries of those tables, you can do that. So here again, I have a whole bunch of raw data. I was able to provide some graphical analysis of all of the data on the sheets, you know, one big graph and then a bunch of individual graphs. And then on each tab, I have a different way of viewing the data. And one of the things that Excel supports is I can embed photographs in here and use those to provide some visual imagery. And also, another thing that's really powerful in Excel, it's a relatively new feature, is called conditional formatting. And conditional formatting allows you to select a range of numbers, and these colors are automatically generated. Let me zoom in a little bit here and show you, but the way that 0 is determined to be red and a 3.75 is green is this tool called conditional formatting, where you can tell it to give me a yellow when it's in the 50 percentile. If it's a high value, make it green, and if it's a low value, make it red. And this is completely customizable and a really neat way to provide really good visual pop to your data and kind of make it clear and easy for folks to follow.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing that with us, Dave. Can you share some advice, if you have any advice for someone just starting out with Excel, learning it for the first time? What advice would you give a student?
Well, I, like you, remember taking an introductory Excel class and then taking a couple follow-on classes, and that was so probably about 20 years ago. And I am still learning new things about Excel. Don't be discouraged if you can't figure out some of the more advanced features. For example, pivot tables was something I always had trouble with and had a little bit of a mental block, and finally broke through and figured out how to use those things, and they're really good. So the main thing is don't be daunted. It starts off, it's really just like a blank sheet of paper, and you've got the ability to manipulate data and present it in different ways, and it's a really great tool.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time, Dave. And those were great examples. Those were some good examples of how students will use Excel by the end of the course. So I'm hoping I get them there, but it's great to get some real life examples of how you use Excel. So I appreciate your time, and thanks for joining us today.
Anytime. Thank you.